Okay, so now Saturday. And to think that we the 2 days we went through, we weren't even talking about day films yet. So
No,
now it really gets packed.
because it starts off at 10:30
Yeah.
with a movie called Kokomo the Treasure Hunter, which is and that's going to be at Playhouse,
Yeah.
and that is about a Japanese girl who believes that Fargo actually happened. The movie Fargo actually
Right.
happened. So she goes to, um, she flies
She
from
travels to America.
to
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, no, I was gonna say just well, I was gonna say the thing you know anyone that's seen Fargo or recently watched the FX TV series, they've got that great title card that comes out letting you know it's a true story.
Right.
And so this is someone that's in Japan stumbles across a VHS cassette and it tells her it's a true story. So why should she not believe that?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's the scene where all the money gets buried and it's never found, and so she's gonna come to America and find this money. That's like the best premise ever.
Yeah, oh, I know.
Well,
Then after that, the movie that I want to highlight is the 11 a.m. movie, the Hip Hop Fellow.
yeah, so we're starting early. That was 10:30 a.m.
10:30 a.m.
And now you're talking about 11 a.m.
11 a.m. The Hip Hop
Okay.
Fellow, and this is a movie about Ninth Wonder, and this is a sequel.
Oh, really?
He gets paid a lot of money to make beats for people.
Oh, yeah.
So Ninth Wonder got a fellowship at Harvard to teach hip hop and to try and bring hip hop into the canon. Like they're going back. One of the things they do in the film is he has a list of the 10 of the best hip hop records ever made, and they go and they try to find all the samples,
Oh, wow.
and they
Yeah.
reconstruct how
they made
they
those
made
songs.
them.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. But this is, I think, Hip Hop Fellow. I really liked it. It might have been my favorite doc I saw this year. Maybe.
Wow.
What else we got?
Well,
We got lots of
I'll
stuff.
just, yeah. I mean, I'll just gloss over some things real quick, but sometimes people are looking for things for kids. So
Right.
there's Kid Flicks Mix at
Mhm.
11 a.m. Saturday. It's a shorts block of kids shorts,
Mhm.
or shorts for kids, I should say. At 10:30 a.m. also is a narrative feature called Uncertain Terms I really liked when I was screening. It's about a home for pregnant young women, like teenage women.
Mhm.
So this lady is helping them basically get through that time. The girls are 15, 16. And you kind of see it through the eyes of this guy who's been hired as a caretaker. So he's got all these young girls ogling him, as he's taking care of the grounds.
Mhm.
And it's also a pretty intense movie. I mean, it gets into some darker themes for sure. But I thought, once again, the performances were great. It has a few actresses you'll recognize from other independent movies we watch. Yeah, and then I mean, there's so many movies we can't talk about all of them.
If you find yourself and you don't really know what you want to watch, or you feel overwhelmed by all this choice, which is completely understandable, go to a shorts program. Watch one of the shorts programs, because it's not the same kind of commitment as a
Yeah, a full feature.
full feature. If
Yeah.
you don't like something, it's going to be over in 5 minutes. And
Yeah,
there's something
exactly.
else that's going to come up.
Yep.
The shorts program's always some of my favorite stuff to do.
That, and you're seeing filmmakers that could be the next great filmmaker. I mean, most people start out making a short, and you can, when you see that feature 2 years from now, you'll be like, oh, I saw where they started. I saw that short film they made.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had that experience over and over again.
Yeah.
1:30, there's on Saturday, there's a documentary called Man Shot Dead, which I liked a lot. There's two, and this was about a family in Morrilton, Arkansas. The filmmaker his grandfather was murdered. The reason they live in Morrilton, or he grew up in Morrilton, Arkansas, is that his family had lived in Houston, and his grandfather was murdered under very mysterious circumstances. And it just has shattered the family for 3 generations. And he goes back and tries to reconstruct the events of the murder. And also, and he's not really very successful in as far as a detective story. So it's not like a Thin Blue Line kind of thing. He gets his whole family to be really honest about some really, really painful stuff that happened to them. And I'm an artist. I'm a musician and a writer and a filmmaker, and I admit, and I think all artists do this, that I divide pieces of art into, I can do that, and I couldn't do that. And in this movie, I couldn't do that.
Wow. Okay.
I could not go as intense, and deep with the family as as he did. I just couldn't do that. And then put it on film and then put it out for people to watch.
Right.
You know, so I found that very, very admirable.
Yeah, I feel like looking at the schedule Saturday, the theme is kind of documentaries. There's so many awesome documentaries. This one, Art and Craft at 3:30.
Everybody wants to see Art and
It's
Craft.
going to be huge. I mean,
Yeah.
it's at Playhouse in the Square, so at least it's the largest venue, but it's probably still going to sell out.
Yeah.
It's this is like the #1 movie I recommend to my parents to go see. Have you seen it yet, by chance?
No, I haven't.
okay.
I didn't write about it at all. I was going to write about it, or going to have a sidebar about it in my coverage from Addison, but Addison couldn't get to see it either. So
Well,
I didn't.
I'll just give everyone the quick,
Yeah.
this guy Mark Landis, who, if I
He's an art forger.
right, and I believe he's from Mississippi.
He is from Mississippi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's an art forger and had work hanging up in galleries all over the country, and including the Brooks here in town. I guess the word is once they found out they had a forgery, they kept it up and kind of made light of it, so people could see what a forgery looked like.
Yeah.
And
He's really good. He's really good at what he does.
I would imagine, yeah. And he and the director, Sam Coleman, will both be at the screening. So that's one we probably don't even need to publicize much because people are coming, but it's one that...
that one's going to sell out. That's going to be a big one. Also, if you can't get into that or whatever, there's Evolution of a Criminal at 3:45, which is kind of the opposite of Man Shot Dead in that this guy, the director, Darius Clark Monroe, actually was an honor student in high school, and his family got in financial trouble, and he decided to rob a bank, and he pulled off a huge bank heist at age 16, and then one of the guys that was, and it would have worked if it wasn't for those meddling kids, one of the guys that was with him ratted him or started going around bragging, and they all ended up getting arrested, and he did 5 years for it, and now it's 10 years after the crime happened, and he made a movie about it. It's like, how did this happen? How did I get in my head to go rob a bank for 50 grand? And,
I saw the premiere of that movie. One thing I thought was cool was that I guess he was a film student of Spike Lee. So Spike Lee ended up coming on as exec producer, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, how there's a lot of reenactments in it. I think that was the last thing they shot to help the story come to life a little bit.
Well, it works.
Yeah.
It works. I mean, it's like an Earl Morris movie.
So so we just named Art and Craft and Evolution of a Criminal, and then at the same
And
time
then
as that...
And Man Shot Dead as well.
I'm sorry. Well, I was going to say, but at the same time as those two movies is
Right.
also the Quiet Riot doc.
Yes, well, now you're here, there's no way back.
That's right.
Yeah, and I can't. It's good. Quiet Riot. I don't know if Frankie Banali is the drummer, and he's the only sort of, it was
the constant through every iteration of Quiet Riot.
Yeah, it was him and the singer Kevin Dubrow, and then Kevin Dubrow OD'd in 2007. So the first half of this movie is sort of the history of Quiet Riot and where they fit in to sort of 80s hair metal, and then the second half is them trying to get to become a touring concern again after Kevin Dubrow died, and they auditioned. So it's sort of half reality show. The second half is more like a reality show kind of thing, and the first half is more like a historical doc.
Okay.
And it's certainly interesting. They got a lot of good footage from back in the day. Probably a lot of footage they never thought would see the light of day, because those guys lived hard, man. I'll tell you.
No doubt. Okay, so then one movie I really want to champion is one called Joy Kevin that I love. And
Everybody that's laid eyes on this movie loves this movie.
Oh, I loved it. You saw it as well?
No, I didn't see it.
So it's another movie involving some, a young couple in Brooklyn, so people kind of tend to roll their eyes because we've seen so many of them. But what I loved about this was it's different than the others for sure. For one thing, it basically focuses on two characters. There's a few others, but they're in a marriage. They're very young. They're both artists. She's a dancer, and he's a stand-up comedian. So both of them are trying to, develop their art. And early in the movie, one of my favorite scenes is that they're creating a calendar of when each of them can work in the apartment at what time, because they step on each other's toes, right? So they have this color coordinated calendar. But anyway, it's a very intense relationship where one's trying to just outdo the other, and But at the same time, what the constant with all these other movies we talk about is that it just feels so real. I mean,
Yeah.
they feel like they're really married. I looked up the actor. I don't believe he's ever acted before. I assume he's a stand-up comedian. And the actress, she's also in that movie Uncertain Terms, and I've seen her in some other movies. She's really good.
That night, of course, is Heathers.
Oh yeah.
The big Heathers 25th anniversary screening, and the two Michael Lehman, the director, and Daniel Waters are going to be on hand. And I also understand there's going to be a really great introduction for that, which I won't spoil.
Okay, cool.
But those guys are hilarious, and they've been around the block in Hollywood 2 or 3 times, and they've been up and they've been down, and they've made some great movies. And Heathers, if you haven't watched it in a long time, if you're like us, or like me anyways, you know, I saw Heathers in the theater. Heathers was a flop when it came out, and it's so weird to me. Heathers cost $2 million, and it couldn't even make $2 million back at the, you know, in wide release with Winona Ryder and Christian Slater both.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird to me to think about that, because I saw it in the theater, and it was it was like a watershed movie to me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I just assumed it was like that for everybody, but it wasn't. People discovered it on home video, and apparently it's had a really big afterlife. You know, with all the emphasis on the opening weekend and everything, I think producers take for granted the fact that if you make a great movie, people are going to want to watch it for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Casablanca has been making Warner Brothers money for 70 years.
Right.
You know? So.
And to me, this clearly laid the groundwork for movies like Clueless and Mean Girls and those dark high school comedies that everyone loves.
It was, and yeah, absolutely it did. And it came sort of at the end of the 80s.
Yeah, 88.
Yeah, and so that high school genre had been really well established and was really popular by that point in the 80s, because you had all those John Hughes movies.
Yeah.
And then you had everybody that was ripping off John Hughes movies. And then you had like The Outsiders and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so these were always, you know, they were angsty movies about friendship and about the difficulties of growing up. And Heathers is a black comedy that sort of turns all of that on its head. Mm-hmm. And you're right that there would be no Mean Girls or no Clueless without Heathers.
Right.
It's very self-aware, and in a way that movies just weren't, especially sort of mass market movies in the 80s just weren't like that.
Yeah.
And the dialogue is amazing, and really, if you watch it now, I think when I rewatched it recently, the thing that really struck me was how good the cinematography is. And it's really well put together film, and it's hilarious.
Oh yeah, it's great.
It's got freaking Winona Ryder in it.
That's right. Yeah, and one thing, you know, we obviously we're going to have to skip half these movies. We don't have time to talk about everything, but one thing I want to mention, there are panels going on throughout Saturday and Sunday. So one that stuck out to me that seemed like a lot of people would like is Acquisition versus Exhibition. Uh-huh. So this is 4:30 Saturday. So we've got Dan Guando from the Weinstein Company coming in, VP of Acquisitions, and they partner him up with Jeff Kaufman from Malco Theaters. So you get the acquisition side of what does Weinstein look for when they buy a movie versus Kaufman. What's it like working with these these companies to then get it out distributed. So anyway, there's a lot of panels. We don't have time to talk about all of them, so just look at the schedule, and there's bound to be a panel or two you're interested in.
Time Lapse is sort of a Christopher Nolan puzzle movie about a couple or some roommates who find that their neighbor is a mad scientist who has created a camera that can see 24 hours into the future. Okay. So it's a time travel movie, but it's not about actual time travel. It's a movie about having information about the future and how that can affect you and what you could do. Because, of course, they make a killing betting on sports. Right. That's what they do. And then Happy Valley at 9:15, which is about the Jerry Sandusky scandal.
Right.
Which is just an amazing, like really sometimes hard to watch movie, and it's just it's insane. That the whole thing is crazy. The whole Jerry Sandusky Penn State thing is crazy.
Yep.
But just to see it, I mean to see it all replayed now with sort of a little distance to it, it just seems even more insane.
it was as weird as a sports story gets. I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
And yeah, some more docs. Glenna, the MMA fighter,
Who is a housewife turned MMA fighter.
right? And so I hear that's a lot of fun. And then Who Took Johnny? That's
Which
another.
is another crime movie.
Once again, this is one my parents thought was interesting because they were living in Des Moines when this happened.
And it's about the kid who was the first kid on the first missing kid on the milk carton.
Right. So they were in the community when everyone's just going crazy, trying to find this kid. And they said, certainly a lot of other kids have been taken, but the fact that he was a paper boy, it just sounded so, it was just a story that scared the crap out of everybody, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. He was the first kid on a milk carton.
Well, and I've heard really good things about Buzzard.
I love that movie.
You did? Okay, go talk about Buzzard.
Well, it is definitely not for everyone, but think Office Space, except really dark. A guy, just the scene that I can't get out of my head is, it builds and builds, but this guy's working a cubicle job. He's a guy in his 20s, and it's just driving him crazy. And he starts to he's kind of losing his mind, and he puts on some Wolverine claws.
Yeah.
And he's at work and just starts slashing stuff. And it's hard to explain, but I saw it at Nashville Film Festival, and the director was there. It was shot in Detroit. And I guess he has some other movies that have played the festival circuit, but yeah, if you're into a very dark comedy, this is for you. Buzzard.
Seems to be a lot of dark comedies this year.
Hey, it's Halloween.
It's Halloween.
Make the comedies dark.
Imitation Game is also one of the showcase screenings that night, and that's a Benedict Cumberbatch movie about Alan Turing. He had a really hard time. He had so much secret knowledge that they blackmailed him with his homosexuality and in order to keep him quiet and keep him out of the Soviets' hands. And, the guy was just a super genius, and he got a really raw deal. So that's, if you want to go, if that sounds interesting to you, but that's another one that's going to be in general release, so you might can wait on it.
And I was going to say similar theme and somewhat, but Dead Snow 2, Red vs. Dead.
Yeah.
As far as
man.
it's actually Nazis, I guess, instead of Soviets.
Nazi zombies, I think.
Yeah,
is what it is.
I haven't seen the first one, but people seem to think it's a lot of fun.
Oh
so
man, no, I told the guys in my band about it who are all big horror movie fans, and they just freaked out. This is the one that they really want to see. They're all going to go to. They want to. They all want to see that one.
Cool. Then also Romeo and Juliet in Harlem.
I didn't see that.
I haven't either, but my understanding is it's exactly like the title sounds.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, and then also, most people won't care about this, but for the first time, the awards show is Saturday night. And the reason that's fun is that so many filmmakers come in town, then by Sunday night, when it used to be, they have to leave. They have to drive home or fly home. So this should be, I'm hoping, the best awards ceremony ever because it should have everyone there.
Yeah. And they're always fun, though. They're
Savannah Bearden produces it, does a great job. So, now Sunday. Moving on.
Oh, yes. Day 4.
Yeah.
Appropriate Behavior has, my wife is I think that's my wife's favorite movie in the festival.
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one, it's about a Persian girl who is a lesbian. And it's a comedy as well of her dealing with her family and parents who seem to be clueless to her sexuality, even though it's right in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
And then just her relationships. And anyway, I thought it was a lot of fun.
And then the experimental shorts block at 12:30. Laura, my wife, and extremely talented filmmaking spouse, has her a movie in that one called 2 Whole Days of Nothing But Uppercase Fuck. And I produced that movie, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. But experimental shorts are always great. And every year, the experimental shorts are some of my favorite of the shorts block. You're going to get to see some animation. You're going to get to see some just absolute weirdness, and go in there and turn off your narrative mind and get uplifted or whatever. American Cheerleader at 2:45, if you're into sports documentaries, is really sort of straight ahead documentary about a cheerleading competition, a high school cheerleading competition. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's not, they don't play with the form at all, but the characterization is really good.
Yeah.
And
And obviously, it just seems like anyone who's been in that world, if someone's had a daughter or sister, or they were a cheerleader, it seems like this is the movie for you.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. It brings you into the
Yeah.
it brings you into the sport.
Well, the huge screening that everyone knows is coming up Sunday is the Hoop Dreams 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
So this is going to be awesome. It's,
This is the AFI's greatest documentary ever.
and well deserved. And,
yeah.
Arthur Adjie and William Gates, the two basketball players, the subjects of the documentary, are scheduled to be in attendance, along with producer Peter Gilbert. So you've probably seen Hoop Dreams. If for some reason you haven't, either way,
If you have not seen Hoop Dreams, you should go and see
Yes.
it, because it is an amazing piece of filmmaking. But once again, in I made a documentary feature, and this is definitely Hoop Dreams is definitely in the I couldn't do that category.
Oh, yeah. And to have both those guys there, I mean, the whole point of the movie is just, watching these guys' lives unfold.
5 years.
Right.
It took 5 years to film this movie.
And so now to see 20 years later, to hear them talk about that, I think it'll be just fascinating. But it is scheduled the same time as, I guess you would say, maybe the highest profile local hometowner premiere.
Lights, Camera, Bullshit.
Yeah.
Eric Tate, who starred in The Poor and Hungry back in 2000, is the star. It's really funny. He is a fresh out of film school guy who's who's come back to Memphis to try because he's heard about the Memphis filmmaking phenomenon, and he wants to be a part of it, and he gets roped into a just horror show of bad experiences, and
it's a meta local film scene.
It is
feature.
a little incestuous, but it's funny.
So
and
you have seen it?
Yes, I have seen it.
I have not seen it yet.
Yeah,
and we should say it's directed by Chad Allen Barton and produced by Joseph Carr.
And everybody that has ever been in a movie in
Memphis
is in that movie at some point. And it's definitely worth checking out.
Okay. Well, I would imagine that will have a big crowd.
Yeah.
And that is Sunday at 5:30, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, at 5:30 at Circuit Playhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And a movie playing the same time of that's been all through the festival circuit is I Believe in Unicorns.
Uh-huh.
And that's a movie I would definitely recommend. It's just, kind of female adolescence growing up. This girl who falling in love with this kind of older guy in high school. But the filmmaking style of it is very original, especially for an independent film. There's stop motion animation. There's all kinds of stuff visually in this movie.
That's what I want to see, and I want to see just, we have the freedom.
Yeah, take some chances.
Take some chances.
Well, I feel like we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
It's been a long talk.
Well, I'll tell you, I've just talked myself into thinking this is the best festival ever. I don't know about you.
Well, I know
except the ones that my movies are in. That's
Well, as usual, I mean, the tough thing is there's just never enough time. So, I mean, people should just come out, see what you can, but then just make notes for movies that you need to watch later if you can. Oh, and also, I forgot to mention, Sunday there's a bunch of encore screenings.
Oh, yeah.
So some of these movies we named, where there's two playing at one time, if it's popular, you might get another shot at it on Sunday.
Yeah, if something is sold out, you'll probably get another shot at it. If something wins, that on Saturday night that is already screened, they'll probably do another screening of that. Too. And but yeah, come out, and like I said, just if you listen to everything we've just said, there's going to be something good going on all the time. You walk into a random movie, and odds are it's going to be something great.
And then I just feel like some final plugs. I mean, Eric Jambor is the festival director. We haven't even mentioned his name yet. He did a great job.
He's been doing a great job ever since he got here.
Yeah,
and
Bridget Wheeler that works
is a machine
with Eric. Yeah, she is awesome.
She's so awesome.
The main sponsor of the festival is Duncan Williams, and we could not be doing this without them.
Right.
They stepped up big time. And all these venues, it just takes a big community. There's a ridiculous amount of volunteers that make this happen.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And thanks to all of them.
Absolutely.
And thanks to you for doing this. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you've joined the Flyer, so now I get to read your opinions every week.
Much.
Yeah. And thanks for taking the time.
Cool.
All right. Well, everyone, we'll see you at the festival. If you see us, come say hi.
See you at the festival.